was stuck for an idea of what to do for a Halloween video. I'm actually going to be working this Halloween, so I thought, I need a costume that I can work in, but will still look cool at the same time. And on TV, a bunch of the Friday 13th films have been showing, and I have not seen one of those films all the way through yet. So I watched them all from the first one to Jason Takes Manhattan in the space of 2 days, and I'm now a really big fan of Jason Voorhees. So this is going to be a budget build at how to do a cheap Jason Voorhees costume using mostly bits from the Halloween section of a local shop. So to start off with, we've got the mask. So this is the base mask, just a £1 really cheap hockey mask from my local Wilco, so let's just snap that off. So first thing we're going to do is actually going to mark out a place to drill some extra holes because the holes aren't quite correct on this mask. So I just need to get my Sharpie and figure out where to put some extra holes, because a couple are going to need to be filled in. Obviously we're not going like super screen accurate because this is just going to be how to sort of make a Halloween store prop look decent. Alright, I'm just going to use one of the small rotary tools on my Dremel. That's about the right size for the holes and go in there. Obviously, if you don't have tools to cut out the holes, you don't have to do it. It's just something I'm going to do because I want to make it fairly close to the OG mask. To make sure I can fill these two in, because obviously you need backing on there. I've just got some of this, which is some leftover plastic. This stuff is just thin polypropylene, just got it off eBay, it's quite cheap. Obviously it's fairly flexible, so it'll go in the back of the mask quite easily. Just enough so it covers those holes and not any of the others. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to super glue this in. And I'm just going to do the same for that top little single hole that needs filling. Right, so I've got the plastic covering both those holes now, and after the super glue dries I just need to put a little bit of filler in those and just sand that down so it's nice and smooth. I was just thinking though, actually before I do the filler, to heat this up a little bit, just to try and get the sides to form a nicer sort of shape, because at the moment it's quite wide, but ideally I just kind of want it to go a little bit more sort of like that. So it's a little bit rounded. Again, just a small change, but nothing too major, so... There we go, that's a much nicer shape, doesn't stick out quite so much. Right, next detail I'm going to add whilst the filler on that dries is the axe mark. That's in the top corner of Jason's mask. You just use a cutting tool on the Dremel, but this stuff is thin enough that I think you can probably use scissors with it if you don't have the Dremel. Just doing a little test. Yes, you can, but... Right, holes are filled, we've got the axe cut, and one more thing I want to do is, because of where this sits on my head, I just want to pad it out a little bit just to bring it off my face a tad more, and then I could add a little bit of tool behind the eyes, because well, in certain shots you see Jason's eyes very clearly, and in other shots you can see there's actually a covering on the eyes. I always like having the eyes and face covered. It's weird, I just prefer having a mask where you just can't see me. So I just bring it forward a little bit, otherwise, you know, my eyes are just going to keep rubbing against it. So to pad it out, I've got some of this, which is 5mm craft foam, this is again one of my offcuts. Good thing I like doing with Halloween builds is just using what I've got around, so, you know, for most people on Halloween, it's the only time of year they dress up. For me, it's the time where, you know, normally I don't really do anything, so budget builds are great. So now what I'm going to do is mask up the elastic, and I'm going to paint the mask with a layer of primer first. On the inside I'm going to go for a black, And on the outside I'm going to go for an off-white colour as the base. Okay, so we got the base colour on. So I went over with a little bit of sort of cream spray, and then I put a little bit of yellow on there as well, just to age it up a little bit more. Just sort of sprayed it at an angle so I sort of catch the raised bits like under the nose and stuff, so you got some sort of lighter and darker areas. Now for this mask, I mean Jason's mask does change quite a lot depending on which film he's in. I'm kind of basing this design off of the 7th film, which is Kane Hodder's first one, so that just has a red triangle on the front. If I'm looking at the correct images. So just gonna quickly mask that up. Right, that's our base paint for the mask all done. I'm gonna add a little bit extra to the straps, again, entirely optional depending on budget and time constraints. I've got a load of these kind of leather straps that I've had for years and have used for various costumes, and so I've got some offcuts which I'm going to use. Now I've already sort of measured it around my head because this is elastic, so you don't want to glue it straight to the elastic. So what I've done is I've put this on and sort of figured out how long I want the straps to be. And I'm just going to hot glue it to this side here and that side, and then probably just tack in the middle bit of the elastic in the middle of that, just so I know I've got sort of the right... It's sort of enough of this that it will still fit on my head, it won't be too small. Just hot glued all the strapping on and added bits of, these are actually push fasteners. You just glued them in place to sort of make the rivets, and that's just a random little screw that I had. So you've still got the actual elastic on underneath, so it holds it tight to the head. So now all that's left to do is weathering, so we've got our trusty brown and black acrylic, just going to water that down and go over certain areas and make it look like it's been used. And just to finish off the paint job, I just added a load of clear lacquer over the top just to seal in all that weathering so it doesn't chip off. And the masks in the film are actually quite shiny as well, so it matches it fairly well. But for a quick sort of repaint, and just like, again, like these straps are optional, but if you're just looking at doing a repaint on this and just adding those extra holes, it looks pretty cool. So with the balaclava to stop my hair sticking out, that doesn't look bad at all. So obviously I just need to put the fabric on the inside to cover the eyes and to cover some of the holes at the bottom of the mouth, but I'm pretty pleased with how that's come out. That looks pretty damn cool. Okay, so for this Jason costume I was going to use something I already had, which was a green boiler suit, but Jason doesn't wear boiler suits. It's normally like a shirt, loose trousers, so I decided to go out and have a look for a shirt today. I was looking for like a dark green button-up shirt. The only green one I could find was a check one. I couldn't even find a dark blue one to do that. Everything, for some reason, is checkered now, because apparently that's the style in autumn, but it's a fairly thick one. And it is green, and, well, Jason does wear a blue kind of check shirt in the second film, Friday the 13th Part 2, with the bag over his head. So, technically we could maybe call this a callback to Part 2, but we'll just sort of like tone it down a little bit so it's not absurdly bright. But we're going to use this as the base for the Jason shirt because it's got a pocket in the right place. It's a button-up one, and we can cut it up and make it look half decent. Oh, there's spare buttons. Keep that for whenever I need that. Yeah, we're actually going to have an exposed rib cage and exposed back and spine. So what I've got for that is this guy here. This is a full 5-foot skeleton prop thing that I got from Wilco's as well. This one was £15, so a bit more expensive. But, you know, we got a full front chest piece, we got a spine, we got a back piece, got a skull which we can use for something, and also might use some of these bone parts as well for like the legs. Because I do have a pair of trousers I'm going to use as well. Because I did discover like a pair of like dark green cargo trousers, so those should work quite well. Obviously this is quite sort of a small skinny skeleton, so what we might do is we'll leave the buttons in the middle intact, chop the rib cage in half, and actually just sort of move it so there's just one bit there and one bit there, sort of spread it out, make it look a little bit more sort of buff, because this is just a hollow plastic. You can see I'm pushing it in there, so it's going to be fairly easy to sort of cut it apart. And obviously going to have to take out all these bits here because it's just cheap formed stuff and cheaply painted, so we can have some real fun with this, and it saves sculpting a load of stuff out of foam, which would have taken a lot more time because I really only have a day to finish this. So we're gonna see how that goes. Okay, so cut out and cleaned out the ribcage and the back. Be careful when you're cleaning up stuff with a blade, because if you slip, yeah, that kind of hurts. So I've just taped up a load of tissue around my finger so I don't bleed over everything. So yeah, always be careful with stuff like that. I usually am, but on occasions, sometimes I slip. So what we're going to do now is mount this onto the shirt, or rather inside the shirt, so we've got to figure out where exactly we want it to go. So if we just split this in half and put one bit here and one bit there, it just makes the chest piece look a bit wider. So what I'm going to do now is just going to paint some of the bones. We've got a fairly decent base colour here, so I don't want to mess with that too much by spraying over it. So I'm actually going to use some acrylic paint to go over the top, and then I'm just going to seal it with a lacquer. So the bones have been painted and they have been sealed in clear lacquer, which will give it a nice little wet look to it. And they're just drying, so I'll show you what they look like when they're finished. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go paint the clothing. So we've got this, which is obviously the very fabulous Jason shirt. We got these, which are the trousers, which will have a leg bone poking out of one section, but for the most part it's just going to be dirty, just so it's easy to move around in. And to stop my hair from poking out behind the mask, got a white balaclava. This is the one I actually used for Holiday Special Boba Fett. So I got another one that I've ordered online to replace the one for Fett. So I'm just going to use this one again, just dirty it up a little bit. So, you know, this is simple. It's not a hugely detailed costume, but it's enough to do as a quick job for a Halloween suit. So yeah, I'm going to use a lot of spray paint for this. Not going to do anything fancy, not going to hand paint or anything. So just going to use blacks, reds and browns just to go over this. And then give everything a wash and a dry afterwards to make sure there's no dirt or paint residue on it still, because I want it to be nice and clean for work. And then we can actually get on with sticking the bones and stuff on the inside, and then it'll be pretty much done. So I left the shirt to dry and put it through the wash, because obviously it has to be clean for work, and unfortunately it did take a fair bit of the colour back out, so you can't really see it on camera, but there is still a little bit there to the eye, so it's not too bad. But obviously I can't go as over the top on it as I would have liked to with a particular costume, because I have to make it so it's still appropriate. So what we're going to do now is actually start gluing in the bones. I'm going to just hot glue them in. Normally I would suggest doing something like attaching Velcro to the inside of the shirt and then attaching Velcro to the rib cage. So if you want to use it as a more frequent costume, you can then pull out the plastic parts and then just wash the shirt. But this is something that's probably going to be upgraded, and I'm actually going to go full on super cool Jason gore in the future. So for now, I'm just going to glue it in there. So what I've also done here is added a bit of webbing that I have, which is just a fabric strap. Just glued it to a couple of points in the corners and on the bottom, just in case the glue doesn't hold on the fabric, then the back won't just suddenly fall out. So these are our cargo pants trousers. I'm only going to add like one little bit of exposed bone in here, because obviously again, the more stuff you have on this, the harder it is going to be to move, because you think it's solid plastic, and while it is kind of flexible, it's not that great. So actual bone bit is going to go in this side. So I'm just going to cut a slit just in the front of the trousers here, ragged it up a little bit, glue the bone in, and then I'll just wear a pair of black leggings underneath this. So I'm just going to add a lot of holes and rip the bottom of these up a little bit, so we're going more with sort of torn clothing than actual stained clothing to get the look. So I've added a few more holes sort of here and there in the shirt, so when I'm wearing black underneath, that will show through. And I'm just going to add one last bit of detail. I was toying with painting it a little bit more, but I don't want to put a load of paint on there. Again, it's something I do have to keep simple. So I'm going to do a little bit, just a little bit of blood on this. And I'm not going to use fake blood, I'm going to use my thing, which I do now, which is a 5-minute epoxy and watercolour paint. I have used this for my Zombie Trooper, and I have used this for my Lucille Bat. So basically this is like a glue, so I know this isn't going to come off. It sticks to pretty much anything. And it dries clear and it dries shiny, and you can mix watercolour paint in it, and obviously that changes the colour of it. And if you put it on, I can like put it on, because what I want to do is just sort of put it on over the ribs, just so there's like something kind of in between there, like a little bit of flesh tissue. Because the idea was to do latex, but again I can't risk that, obviously being behind the counter at work, for that stuff to come off. And again, it will just, if I do it on like sort of the side where the fabric is, it'll just hold it on that a little bit better as well. So that's how to make a Jason Voorhees out of Halloween decorations, a button-up shirt and a pair of cargo trousers. As I said, this is a little bit more simple than I would have liked to do. I've got to keep it simple for working behind the counter at my job. I can't have lots of gore and lots of bits hanging off because you can't risk anything dropping off into people's drinks. That would just be really awkward and bad. So it's a simple version, but it works. Just customizing a £1 mask and a £15 full skeleton, which has some bits left over. So if you wanted to have a severed skull and spine to take around with you, you can obviously use the ribcage, the back, and one of the leg bones as well. A little bit of paint and just using a little bit of my sort of epoxy method, which I quite like to use for some other stuff, and it looks alright. It's fairly comfortable. I think the most uncomfortable part is the back, because obviously it's one big chunk, so it's gonna dig in very slightly, but you can have full range of movement and it's not gonna get in the way, so I don't think it's gonna be a problem. So I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you has to go out to my supporters on Patreon. You can support me on Patreon through different tiers. One of the tiers is to have your name shouted out on my videos. So thank you very much to Jeff Kenny and Mortarian for supporting this channel. If you like what I do here and want to see more of what I do, please subscribe, take a look at some of my other stuff, and I will have a lot more videos coming out soon. I've got an armor kit which is in the box waiting to be done. I've got a blaster build that's going to be coming out next, and a few event videos as well. Normally I sign off my videos by saying may the force be with you, but it doesn't feel very appropriate for this one, so just gonna awkwardly go ch ch ch. See you later.